So an ESOP is just an employee share option plan. It is an allocation of equity that a company will put aside. And remember that it's intangible at the time that you create an ESOP. So it's just a hypothetical percentage of equity in the company that you put to the side and say, we're going to hold this for future hires, for employees that we want to incentivize or we want to give a benefit to rather than pay a cash bonus. We will give them some ownership rights in the company. And the option component of an ESOP is important because what you're giving them is not actually a share from day one. You're giving them an option note, which can convert at a later date into a share in the company. So from a company ownership and decision-making perspective, it's great for a business to be able to have an ESOP because rather than giving them shares from day one, which therefore come with those voting rights and dividend rights and things like that, you're giving them a piece of paper that says, one day I will give you a share. And whilst you remain in the business and whilst everyone's happy and your employment remains and you keep doing your job, that will eventually become a share. And then you can, share in the ultimate benefit of the company when we sell or if we start paying out dividends. As opposed to an employee share plan, which is where you give a share up front, which vests over time. That means that someone's getting those equity percentages and they're sitting on your cap table from day one, which comes with obviously those extra rights. There are some creative tax elements around an ESOP if you're considered a startup in Australia as well. ATO released some legislation, which I think they're changing at the moment or finessing, which gives some tax benefit to startup employees if they participate in an ESOP. I won't go into those. You can speak to an accountant about that. But basically it means that they get to kick the can down the road on some of their tax liabilities attached to those options, which in the past they would normally get taxed up front as if they received some cash in the bank from the business. So ESOPs are great. We're seeing more of them popping up and we're actually seeing investors make a request that is already something sitting in the cap table that the business already has an ESOP prior to them making their investment.
Okay. And are you seeing that from more Series A investors or even earlier than that?
Earlier. And look, you see it for two reasons. One is the altruistic element of, it's important for the business to have equity to be able to give to their employees to incentivize them and, give them some skin in the game so they treat it like their own. But the other is so that the dilution occurs at the founder level. So the 10% already gets pulled out of the founder's equity essentially, and therefore it doesn't dilute the investors as those options convert into shares into the future. So it's a little bit of helping the business and a little bit of protecting the investors from diluting by giving out shares to employees in the future. So typically we see between sort of 10 and 15%. More often at the moment, we've been seeing 15 and in the past it was 10. And I think it's because, we're seeing probably a bit less cash flow in businesses to pay the employees, market rate or a competitive rate so that, the investors are knowing now that there's going to be a lot more options being offered earlier. So those businesses are going to need a higher percentage to be able to keep that pool open for a longer period of time.